Welcome, and thank you so much for joining us today for this Q&A session of the tutorial that was just premiered, and we're so happy to have you here with us. My name is Margaret Merkley, and I chair the program committee and am president of the Ontario Guild of English Handbell Ringers.
My name is Rob Cairns, and I will be the other moderator for this session today, and I am the Vice President of OGEHR.
Today's tutorial on how can the Music Lending Library help you as a director or a ringer was produced by Debi Sproule.
Debi began ringing handbells in 2005 and is now involved in several different groups. Currently, Debi is OGEHR's coordinator of the Music Lending Library. Now, at this point, we'll be taking any questions that our participants might want to submit in our Zoom chat. And Marg, I believe you've got the first question.
I do have a question, Debi, and it's one that I think a lot of people might have if they're listening to this, is that the Music Lending Library Coordinator, who is you, is responsible for getting the music to the borrower, and then the borrower is responsible for getting the music back to you. Can you just explain a little bit more about the logistics of how that happens?
Sure. So it's up to the, as you say, the Music Lending Library to get the music to the borrower. And this can be done in several ways. Mailing the music is probably the most obvious and one that we certainly do use. But also sometimes I will drop the music off in person. If, for example, I live in Burlington, so if the borrower lives close by or works close by or happens to be close to a route I'm taking from A to B, then I will drop the music off in person or sometimes even at their church. And then the third way is something we refer to as the Pony Express, which is, again, for example, if I ring in a choir with someone who rings in another choir with someone who wishes to borrow music, I can give the music to my friend who will then pass it on to the borrower in the choir that they both ring in. So a few different options, and obviously the borrower, when they're going to return the music to the lending library, has those same options.
Great.
I have to say the Pony Express part is great. I live in London, and I did borrow some music a little while back, and that's how the music made it to me. It was through somebody that happened to be coming out to London, and it just conveniently showed up that way, which was fantastic. Another question. You mentioned that there are sometimes some special notes. I was intrigued about that part in the video. Some special notes about pieces in the Music Lending Library. What sort of notes, what sort of information might that be?
Well, in addition to the bells and the chime music in our pieces, some have optional percussion, for example. So other instruments are also part of the music, and percussion is one common one, but also sometimes music will include part for an optional C instrument, and this would be shown in the notes section. Some of our music includes organ accompaniment. We have one piece, for example, probably more than one, but one I can think of that where there's a vocal solo, an optional vocal solo in addition to the bells. Some of our pieces are medleys, so they include different tunes, and those tunes may be listed. If there's a collection of a few pieces, those titles will probably be listed. So there's a lot of information that can be gained through looking at the notes.
Thank you. We hope this doesn't happen, but what does happen if the borrower damages music or misplaces it, can't find it, lose it.
Hmm.
Have there been instances like that? How do you handle that?
It's up to the borrower to return the music in the condition in which it was borrowed. So it would have to be replaced, and probably with the same title. But that's up to the discretion of the coordinator of the lending library. So it could be a different title. We actually have not had a situation like that. We came close once where somebody thought that they had lost all the copies of this particular piece of music. And what should they do? And we had a discussion over it because it was the first time that I'd incurred this or came across this. And it was suggested that we wait and let the people hopefully find the music. And that's exactly what happened. And I think we can all relate to music gone missing. So that's what happened. But if it is lost or damaged, it would have to be replaced. Or if one copy is likewise damaged or gone missing, it would have to be replaced.
Fair enough.
But it doesn't happen often.
One of the things that I have seen whenever we've been at different OGEHR events is there's a table which you have set out where you've got a number of different copies of music available from the lending library, which is great because you get a chance to just pick it up and look through it.
Exactly.
If you are borrowing music right there, I understand there's a form that needs to be filled out.
Yes.
What information do they need to have available at the time if they're going to use that form?
I have a copy of that right here. It's a very short form, small, as in short. And it asks for information like the title of the piece that you're interested in borrowing, your name, address perhaps, not totally necessary, phone number. The most important is probably your email, because that's how I would get in touch with you to arrange how to get the music out to you and also confirm the music that you're interested in. And then the date that the music's borrowed and the number of copies that the person would like. They may need all the copies we have, or they may not. So I send out what they need.
That sounds perfect. The video that you did was just so well laid out. The information is all right there, and it makes it really clear how to go about borrowing music from our lending library. And I was just on the database on the web page, and there is well over 350 pieces in the database. So there's a lot of variety available for people to borrow. Marg, I don't see any other additional questions right now.
So I'm just wondering at this point if the participants, if you just unmute yourself, and if you have a question to ask directly to Debi at this point, we would invite you to do so. Lloyd, go ahead.
Go ahead. Yeah.
My question is about the inventory. I happen to have glanced at it, and often enough, the number of octaves are mentioned, 3 octaves, 4 octaves, etc., which means a full choir. Is the inventory indexed for less than a full choir? Like, can you sort by these are the titles for a solo ringer, these are the titles for a quartet?
Yes, actually, if you scroll down towards the bottom of the list, this is just a copy of the inventory that I have in my hands. We have solo and ensemble ringing. Let's see. It starts around number 337. It's actually the title solo ensemble ringing is at the top of the page. You'd only see that if you had it printed out. But we do have some, I don't know, maybe about 30. That's kind of a guess, 30-ish. solo and ensemble pieces.
Oh, okay. Thank
So
you.
it is there if you go to the library, to the Music Lending Library website page.
Thank you.
Kathy.
I had a project that sort of parallels what the Lending Library has. Is last year we decided in a pandemic space of time that we would find out what we actually owned in our choir. And we really didn't know. It was sprinkled around multiple file cabinets in our music room. Some with regular singing choir, and then a half drawer of bell ringing and ensemble stuff. In another place, it was a real mess. So even though we couldn't go into the church, the director was able to go in and pull what she did was pulled a copy of each piece and then wrote in pencil on the top how many copies she found. And we also have blown up copies for Bonnie to use. So we could also record whether we had already made an enlarged copy for her to see. So we now have a database of our choir stuff, and we can also tell if Bonnie's going to get a piece right away or have to take it to the store and get it enlarged. So we have a giant database set up, and then that way we know if we wanted to play a piece. If we only had 7, we could order the balance from your lending library, because there are pieces that have gone astray over time, where we started with 3-octave choir, and then we moved up to a larger choir, and then we have everybody used to go away in the winter problem, and what can we ring that sounds good with only 3 octaves. So it was a very useful task. It took me hours and hours and hours, but our conductor, with not being able to go into the church and browse through things, has been able to use it during the pandemic time to find what can we ring if we only have so many ringers allowed in the space, because we had a rental situation where we couldn't have too many. So it's a really valuable resource to know what you have or what you need as a choir. And then if we wanted a flute, which one, and I've made it in an Excel chart. I haven't looked at your page, but it's probably like that, where we can sort down the notes section and say which one has a violin or which one has a flute or which one has organ or whatever. So
awesome.
So it's tons of work, and I encourage anyone else who is not knowing what they have and what they need to borrow. They might actually own more than they thought they did, and that's what happens.
Probably, that's true. That's a good exercise to go through for your choir.
Yeah.
There's actually some, you have to look for them, but there are some silver linings to COVID that you have to take advantage of for sure. And maybe, Debbie, you wouldn't mind just letting people know that are watching and listening that you did the pieces of music that you did order that are because of COVID.
Oh, sure. Let's see now. So the library purchased 2 collections of books, 4-ringer handbell collection, book 1 and book 4. So these you find in the ensemble and solo section, and it's alphabetical, as you can see. James Kimball is the arranger, and they're bells simply from G5 to G6. So it's for 4 ringers, each playing 2 bells, each with 2 bells. So the music is pretty straightforward. One of the collections is Christmas, that's book 4, and the other collection is some hymns, some kind of popular type pieces. I think there are about 12 different pieces in each. There might even be more, but yes. So that's what we did do, with the idea that social distancing is important now and probably will be for a while. We only want to have 1 bell in each hand so that we don't need to set up the tables, perhaps, so that we can more easily spread out in whatever perhaps smallish space that we have. So hopefully that music will be helpful.
And I think it's a good addition to the lending library, Debbie. Certainly during the COVID and any other kind of similar situation, but just in general, good pieces for small choirs, small groups to be able to take.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Yeah, people could take it to a mall, for example, and play there without worrying about tables and pads and so forth.
Excellent. Not seeing any other questions. I'm just thinking that, oh, Lloyd, please go ahead.
If we have music we wish to donate, how is that best done?
Good question. Well, I guess in considering we're not getting together in person, if you could get in touch with me and I could maybe arrange, depending on where the person lives, to pick it up perhaps. I would be certainly happy to do that if it's not too far a distance. If it was a few pieces, like not a lot, and the postage wouldn't be too much, then perhaps mailing it to me would be an idea.
Okay, thank you.
We love getting donations. And maybe I could bring up another point, if this is okay, because music donations of used music is not, unfortunately, tax deductible. So we're not able to give out a charitable tax receipt for used music. However, for new music, we are. So if there's an invoice stating the amount that was paid for that music, OGEHR can issue a tax receipt. So it's something to keep in mind.
Any other questions? Thank you so much, Debbie. I think that this has been a great addition. As Rob mentioned, your video is excellent, but these are just additional questions that are great, have given us good information to add on.
Please mark Saturday, May 15th on your calendars and plan on being part of the next handbell tutorial. Our guest clinician will be Debi Fingus, and she'll be presenting a tutorial about chimes. We encourage you and your fellow ringers to attend and see what that tutorial is all about. That tutorial will be the final one of the 23 that we have presented over the course of the 2020-21 season.
So on behalf of the Ontario Guild of English Handbell Ringers, we would certainly like to thank Debi Sproule for her wonderful tutorial and for the participants for joining us today and being part of the Q&A session. Thank you. Have a good rest of the day and stay safe.